So then Manchester United travel to Munich tonight to face Bayern in the Champions League. And since the squad list came out, United fans have just gone, this is a shagging. Now, I wanted to delve into, there's a few reasons, in my opinion, why United are struggling. And I think some of the issues are quite alarming. I think the injuries are a big one, and perhaps we won't really sort of touch on that too much because there's not really a way that you can fix injuries per se. But United are toiling in far too many areas of the game, struggling and behind in too many areas of the game. The issues that we've got this season, on top of the injuries, on top of everything that's going on with the ownership, I'm not looking at that. I am looking at literally on the pitch, what are United doing wrong, and maybe how can we fix that to get back in a position where we can start dominating and winning games again. We are in desperate need of a fix, and as much as I can read all of this out, ain't none of that going to change by tonight in time for Bayern. Hopefully we can start on the road to start fixing some of this. Now, number one for me is the lack of physicality and athleticism in the squad. Now, I think this is probably a major concern for us. It's very easy to bypass the midfield on an athletic footing. Casemiro just hasn't looked fit at all this season. Looked heavy in pre-season and looks leggy now the season has started. Everyone's assumed we needed someone alongside him. Even when Scott McTominay played alongside him at the weekend against Brighton, it didn't really help. This United midfield, the one that gets selected on the most common basis, you've got Bruno Fernandes, who is a bit of a dynamo, but he's tiny. You've got Christian Eriksen, who, of all the things he's got going for him, physicality is not one. And then you've got Casemiro, as I said, who has got the ability to really put it on someone and be a bit of a unit. He's a bloke, but at the moment, looks leggy. Teams we play are more dynamic on a personnel-wise. That Wolves side absolutely ran through us. They were quicker and stronger, man for man, all over the pitch, but it was especially obvious in the centre of midfield. And it's a huge equaliser for teams that don't have the same quality. And get away with small teams. Listen, if you're playing Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta in midfield, you'll get away with it, but we're not, so you can't. Casemiro's physicality declining is a real big one. And he's tasked with marshalling such a large amount of space, especially on a transition. Our dual success is poor. We are always second to a loose ball. We actually have the third worst aerial dual win percentage in the league, which I think tells you a hell of a lot about what's going on. Lindelof and Martinez is a very lightweight centre-back partnership. It's probably a little bit imbalanced and it's a little bit unimposing. Varane is a bit of a beast. Varane physically is an impressive specimen. And when you look at the profile of some of the other people that United have been looking at, you see why we want to bring somebody in. I think that probably is why we were looking at Everton's Onana to come in, because you look at him, he is physically impressive. Technically, maybe a little bit different. Look, Onana, my opinion on Onana was, he was a slightly better version of Scott McTominay. A little bit basic, but he's going to run, he's going to put himself about there, and he's going to smash a few people when he needs to, and he's a bit of a threat at set pieces. But it's understandable why we wanted somebody like that in the middle of the pitch. Now, when you've got a lack of physicality, that's usually balanced out by the fact that you've got a shitload of really technical players, right? Wrong. So the technical floor on this team needs to be raised. United are 11th for pass completion in the league with 82.4%, which is worse than the likes of Burnley and Fulham. Martinez and Eriksen are probably two of the only players that you would call technicians. They're in deep areas. Eriksen, not really a long-term player that United need to be looking at in terms of any role, really. He's going to have a way to play in this team, but it shouldn't be back-to-back and full 90 minutes. The athletic levels of him just aren't there for that. Casemiro, as we said, he's been asked to do this from deep, but that's never been his game. He's a bit more of a destroyer. In the Real Madrid side, he was partnered with Kroos and Modric. He just fucking nail people and give them the ball. Admittedly, there was more to it than that, but trying to be simplistic, that's what it was. He wasn't a guy getting on the ball and dictating play from deep. That's not what it was. His pass completion over the last year puts him in the bottom 26 percentile in Europe. He's not that guy. Again, another reason why United have opted for Amrabat, because he's just a 99th percentile midfielder. And for all those people saying he's not going to do fuck all in the Premier League, you are dead wrong about that. But outside of those two that we've highlighted, and like we said, even Casemiro, who's a real top-end player, the technical floor of United is so low. It's so low. There's not enough technical footballers in that football team. And when you haven't got the technique and you haven't got the athleticism, what are you standing for? You kind of need to pin your colours to one mast, or you do what Bayern and Manchester City have done, which is find technical players that are fucking massive as well. And that's problematic, because how are you going to beat them? A personnel overhaul is much needed in these positions for United to make a jump to become an elite side. You're not necessarily going to train this. You need to buy this or develop this. Right, lads, listen. One of the reasons that I keep a full beard at the moment is because back in the army days, I had to wet shave every single day. Every single day. And it gets old quickly. And it gets boring quickly. But you know what? Manscaped, if this was available back in the day, might have been happy days with it. And Manscaped, your trusted below-the-waist groomers, have come up with something that is revolutionary for above the neck game as well. They've gone above and beyond with the new Handyman electric face shaver, designed to give you that smooth, chiseled look for a clean shave without the faff of the traditional wet shave. Pop over at manscaped.com, snatch yours. You're going to get 20% off plus free shipping by using the code Howson20. Listen, your mug is the first thing that people spot, right? So make sure it's something to see when you get the Handyman shaver. Take it from me, someone that cherishes their beard, this is a game changer. It can tackle up 3 days of growth like a pro. It's got the skin safe technology, so you're going to stay clear of all the nicks and cuts, giving you the confidence to really go for a close shave. It's a go anywhere thing, perfect for wet and dry use. It's not going to let you down on the road because it's compact. It's got a long lasting battery. And if you've got a mane like mine, they've also got the Beard Hedger Pro. That's a one-stop shop for beards, all your different needs. It's got a trimmer, it's got 20 different lengths, all on one guard. So say goodbye to clutter, say hello to easy grooming. Now listen, I've got a little challenge for you guys here. If 250 of you get this Handyman, screenshot me your order and tweet me with it, I will shave off this glorious beard of mine. That is my challenge to you lot. If 250 of you do it, I will go clean shaven, but I want to see those receipts from you as well. So hurry up, head to manscaped.com, use the code Howson20, get 20% off and free shipping, and let's see if the Handyman can tempt me back into the clean shaven club. Role selection. Now, this one, the manager has got the capability to fix. Players have been tasked for roles that aren't optimal to their profile, and it comes a little bit at the detriment of the team. For example, against Brighton, Eriksen was asked to be the left number 8 in a diamond midfield, but he's having to shuffle across 15-20 yards to track the fullback and winger, despite his lack of athleticism and ground coverage. It might have been optimal for United to rotate him a little bit higher, use the dynamism that you get out of Bruno Fernandes, and ask him and McTominay to cover in the wide areas, and Casemiro can cover the sort of central channel, allowing Christian Eriksen to have a role which is more tasked with what are we going to do when we get on the ball ourselves. We have seen Bruno Fernandes played wide at times. You've seen Luke Shaw played as an inverted fullback. You've seen Casemiro plays as a deep-lying playmaker. You know, some of those have worked, but some of those have been square pegs in round holes. And United, if we want to do well, are going to have to get people where they're optimal. And Mason Mount is a massive conundrum for this, because he really excels in a place that you didn't really need to upgrade in Bruno Fernandes. When I first looked at where he could come in, I thought you might be looking at him playing alongside Bruno, or perhaps Bruno moves over to the right. Maybe that's something that you can do in a game where you're expecting to have a lot more of the ball. You can't really judge him on the couple of games that we've had because the entire team has been dysfunctional. But I think Mason will be a decent rotational player for us. But the way the rest of the team is at the moment, I don't know where he gets his opportunity, because without going back on what I've just said, you've got to get the right role for him. You know, is it going to be a generalist that fills in a little bit like Ji-sung Park did? it was a day generalist if that was the case. But, where is he going to fit in? What is his role going to be? Next up, in-game management. So the decision that we've had from Erik Ten Hag at time probably is a little bit more of a pressing issue, and has been one of the weaknesses since he arrived, I think. In-game, I've not been too aware of United really fixing things out on the fly. It seems like we have a plan, we go with a plan, that plan works, or that plan doesn't work. And the ability to mix it up and change on the fly doesn't seem like it's at the same level as some managers that we've seen. Whether that be with substitutions, tactical tweaks, both. There are multiple times in games where a change from a manager has worsened our position in the game. One of the traits that we saw under Solskjaer was like we was second half FC. We were shite in the first half. He'd see something, we would come out in the second half, we'd fix it, and we'd go and smash somebody. We did that so often. Actually, the opposite appears to be the case under Erik Ten Hag. We start games well and we end them badly. Second halves under Erik Ten Hag have been subpar. That for me has to be an indictment on the manager and the analysis staff that he surrounds himself with. What advice is the manager getting? There's a million things going through a manager's head in the first half of football. Always at the forefront of his mind is going to be, at what point do I make the first substitution? And I don't necessarily think substitutions should always be seen as just an energy refresh or necessarily just as a tactical refresh. I think you can plan substitutions in from half-time onwards. Sir Alex Ferguson probably nailed it when he said, don't make a change 10 minutes into the game, 15 minutes into the game. Unless it's an injury, you should really be giving players a full 45 of the first half. If you're making a change after 10 minutes, it's your bad decision making because you're not backing yourself. 10 minutes ago, you thought this guy was good enough to start. What's changed your mind? So I would always say that 45 minutes is the minimum any player should be getting from the start. After that, you should be making changes as you see fit because things happen in games that you want to go and impress on. Going back to the Brighton game again, United were effective in the first half. Brighton figured us out and came out and smacked us about in the second half. There's too many times that United have been decent in the first half, not quite managing to get our noses in front, and then we absolutely capitulate in the second half. And then the press. So our pressing numbers aren't actually awful. It is the first line of engagement for our press, but when that first line of the press is bypassed, it appears to me that there's a lot of structural issues. United do press in ones and twos. It's a little bit on the passive side. Rarely do you see United aggressively clamp a ball or force an opposition into mistakes. Fullbacks really fail to back up the press, which leaves huge spaces into midfield, and that in turn means opposition are able to get on the ball, move that transition, and then move it into the final third where their wingers and forwards can actually do us some damage. The majority of the success for Brighton on the weekend came down to the right-hand side of their build-up, the left-hand side of United's press. Shouldn't come as a surprise. Højlund and McTominay were much better pressing, as a duo at least, than Rashford and Eriksen were. We have an alarming lack of athleticism and legs in midfield. When you add that to a lack of a press in the forward line, which is our first line of defence, you see why this United team is almost easy to play against. Rashford's pressing statistically is awful at the moment. So the lack of defensive work that you're getting out of us as a team, and a team that's in rebuild and a team with structural issues, makes him a luxury defensively that we can't necessarily afford. Now, I'll defend Marcus sometimes on this because he is our counter-attacking outlet. So sometimes you designate one player that is allowed to cheat. One player that you go, listen, we're going to maximise your offensive capability by limiting your defensive responsibilities. And Marcus is the obvious person to do that because he's got the dynamism, especially when playing against a team on the halfway line, where he can go and hurt you. But there were instances in the Brighton game where you go, that needs to be pressed. Like, you've got to get out there and press that. This is jogging, and if you went from a jog to a trot, you'd actually get there and you'd probably put a little bit of pressure on the ball. For all the attacking output that United get from Marcus, the way United are right now, I don't think we can have 0 passengers. I think it would be better for Marcus and the team if he just ran himself ragged. Even if he only gets 30 minutes. Because what the TV cameras don't pick up, and you'll get this when you're in the stadium, is Marcus is constantly sprinting off the ball when United are in possession, and he's not always getting seen. So that's something that I think you can lose as a mitigation. That little press where he just walked, it might have been the first half as well, against Brighton, that wasn't good enough. And I would say, look, run yourself ragged for 60 minutes. We've got the likes of Garnacho who'll come on for 30 minutes. The team will benefit from us doing this. Something's going to have to give. This United team doesn't have the capability to hold the ball, so we can rest with the ball a little bit. Well, we're not asking ourselves to run as hard. And so what often you see with very good pressing teams is because they have the ball so often that they're relaxed in possession. It's a whole different mindset and a different sort of heart rate that you get. In possession, you're in control. You're not having that cortisol effect of panicking, thinking, how do we get the ball? How do we get the ball? How do we get the ball? We're under threat. We've got a transition. When you've got the ball, you can relax, or you can if you're good enough. And you can knock it about, pop it around, you can have a breather, you can have a walk around. As we saw Brighton doing at Old Trafford for an hour and a half on Saturday. When you're good enough on the ball, you can do that. But United aren't good enough on the ball. Literally bottom half of the league in terms of holding possession. Not good enough, right? Provably not good enough to be able to do that. Okay, so what does that mean that you have to do then? That means you're going to have to work harder to get the ball back. That means you're going to have to work harder overall across the game. That means that your attacking output might be diminished because you're working so hard to retrieve the ball. But you got to do it. You got to do it. There's some intrinsic truths that Manchester United should stand for. Pressing is the word that has become the fashion. But Sir Alex Ferguson teams used to press, and they didn't call it pressing. They would call it getting on his touch. They would call it not letting him get his head up. Those two things are pressing. You know, you're arriving at the ball at the same time somebody else is, so you're on his touch, and you're getting up there in front of someone, so you keep their head down, so they're having to look at where they're dribbling the ball, so they're not able to get their head up, knock the ball out of the feet, and then ping a dangerous ball in behind our defence. Those two things are pressing. It just wasn't called pressing. And United's press back in the day was quite coordinated. When you look at, you'll go and look at the treble team, go and look at that team in 2008, because I do. Football, people like to suggest football has changed loads, and it hasn't. It really hasn't. I would argue that it's probably a little bit more athletic now than it was certainly 20, 25 years ago, but not by that much. You go and look at some of the distances that David Beckham used to run, and you'll realise it's not been improved by that much. But I would say that there's a lot of things that were evident in games back then that are still evident in games right now, and you will see people revert to formations that were used back then and tactics and things that were used back then as well. It's just maybe a little bit more sophisticated, and when things change, they change rapidly, and they seed across Europe in a heartbeat because everyone's got, you know, super fast internet and TV access for all the Premier League games, whereas, you know, something might germinate in Germany or Italy for a bit of a time and become a little bit of a local staple before it's then transported across the continent when someone sees it in a European game, because VHS tapes was a little bit harder than clicking on a YouTube link. But either way, those are the things that I believe United really need to work on about fixing on the pitch. And there's about 1,000 things that we need to worry about off the pitch. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.